Welcome to the broadcast, my dear, through crumbles. Did you hear about this? Did you read that this is some dramatic revamp in Montecito, some sort of restructuring of the staff, which seems to be mirroring precisely the arrangements of the royal households of the original and real and true royal family, instead of all this fakery over in Montecito? The hierarchical system that successfully underpinned the royal family for decades is being copied, a cheap facsimile, by the Harkles, and this is being run separately to Archewell, you understand. Do you see how this maverick, this Todge, this dragon slayer Harry, marches into things saying he's got to, smash the system and slay all of these dragons, and the breakout starlet, of course, Nutmeg Markle, is bringing in and introducing all these new highfalutin ideas. And in fact, they fail in their mission to do things their way, because their way is shit and it's pants and it does not work. What does work? The royal way. So no matter how they parry against it, they return to it, falling back on the very system that they disparage. Isn't that just desserts? And it appears that at the helm of this team of 11 is Meredith Kendall Mains, who is the chief communications operator. All of their team, their disciples, seem to be these communications pros, but they ain't communicating very successfully, are they? All they're communicating is the fact that the House of Sussex, as they might term it, is being run by cowboys. And Indians without a chief, because it's chief this, chief that, chief impact officer, chief comms officer. And this comms strategist, this Meredith gal, is giving off shades of Sir Clive Alderton. This is what the press is saying, you see, that Harry, despite disparaging Sir Clive in spare, is now seeing the benefits of such a character and roping them in to his enclave. The Duke's own chief of staff, because his chief of staff is going to be different from the Duchess's chief of staff. They need their own chiefs and their own disciples. The Duke's will be Miranda, excuse me, dear, Miranda Babbitt. It's stuck in my throat, that name. Miranda Babbitt. Oh no, Barbot, or Barbeau. Apparently she helped re-elect Obama, so you've got her to thank for that. And then the Duchess's own chief of staff will be Sarah Fosmo, as we previously discussed. And they are going to be overseeing the hush-hush new commercial venture from Prince Harry. It's all very hush-hush, but a commercial venture is incoming over the next few months. Very interesting. What, Spare 2? Spare the sequel? Spare us, please. Let's face it, the tome is the only guaranteed seller from anything that comes out of there. Same with the Duchess, really. It's tomes. That's what the media really want. And what might sell a bit more than her spread. And speaking of which, Meghan's chief will be thinking about how they can expand the as ever range. Well, they couldn't really reduce it, could they? Because it's scant. And it's going through all kinds of things behind the scenes because they are so difficult to deal with by all accounts, changing their mind all over the place. No one can work with them. And then we have this cavalcade of upstarts. Liam Maguire, by the way, is one who looks quite hot, doesn't he? He's quite hot. But no black faces, I notice. Do you see this, my dear? What do you notice of this all-inclusive, all-diverse team of disciples? Not one black face. Not that I care, because I believe in meritocracy. I don't believe in all this DEI bullshit. It's bullshittery. No, I don't. So I don't care if there's black, white or red all over, my dear. Or pink with yellow dots. I don't care if the faces just be good at the job. But Harry and Meghan are the wokey kind, aren't they? And they believe in representing those who might be invisible or those who are underrepresented. This is what all of their things are for. So why are there no black faces? Maybe one or two of them have got a little bit of, I don't know, the 43% kind of affair that Meghan likes to brandish. You know, maybe some of them have the most delicate shade of cafe au lait. I don't know what's going on in their heritages. I don't care. But I don't see ebony. Do you understand? I don't see ebony. It's all ivory. Racists. Pure racism. That's what I see. You know, where are the black folk? Because the balcony at the Palace of Monteshitshow is looking terribly white, isn't it? Egregiously white. Always just so white. And as for the Duchess, oh, Megsy, she's been using the King's granddaughter again, hasn't she, to promote her wares? Exploiting everything that should be held sacred, from royalty to motherhood. Everything is exploited. Nothing is off limits. Nothing. This time it's beekeeping. She's beekeeping hand in hand with the young princess in protective attire. It looks like a scene from E.T., if you ask me. Is she gunning for Steven Spielberg? That's what I want to know, my dear. And the melody that ran behind all of this, which I can't play for copyright reasons, was Sugar, Sugar. Yes, Sugar, Sugar. You couldn't make it up, could you? And from what I could see, these outfits look like Meghan's regular wardrobe. She always wears this kind of affair. Baggy sheets flapping around, no difference whatsoever. Dame Joan Collins, who is playing Wallace Simpson in a forthcoming movie, which we discussed previously, turned 92, didn't she?
Joan, you are such a wonderful friend. You're a wonderful woman.
Yes.
And you're a wonderful husband and a mother. And you are fantastic. No, don't be on the camera with her. That's
And I just loved this little vignette of Christopher Biggins, who made me chuckle, throwing a little bit of gentle shade at our Joni, didn't he, at her birthday lunch at Rules.
It is wonderful that you're here tonight, and it's great that you're doing this movie. And I've always, whenever I've looked at you, I've thought Duchess of Windsor.
I know.
Well, I've already made the point that casting Joan as Wallace Simpson, Wallace Windsor, as she became, you understand, the Duchess of Windsor, is at odds with Joan's reputation as a beauty. But it's nice to know that they're all having fun with it, isn't it? Now, before we go on to look at the affairs of Canada, which has been very interesting the last few days, just a quick word on the Macrons, because some of you have been asking for my thoughts on the squabble that was witnessed at the top of the aeroplane, with Brigitte going hell for leather at old Manny Macron. Well, I know what I'm about to say is going to be a minority opinion and probably not the popular opinion, but you are here for my opinion, so that's what I'm going to give, my dear. I love it. I just love it, and I love them, which I never thought I'd say, especially about Manny, especially about old Manny Macron. Never really liked him, never had a great instinct about him. But the more mischief they get up to, the more I absolutely adore them. I just think they're fabulous. I think Brigitte is fabulous. Just wonderful. I found it sexy. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I don't care who knows it or who's offended. I've yet to be convinced that Brigitte is a man, by the way. I know that this is a popular theory out there. I'm yet to be convinced, and I don't really care, if she's a man or a woman. But if she's a man, c'est la vie. C'est la vie. Vive la différence. And I don't know if this frisson we see in their dynamic is some sort of kink of theirs, which is being suggested in some quarters. Well, if they're not hurting any others, c'est la vie. Oh la la. Vive la différence. And I say this because I am a person who is hugely influenced by my visits and my sojourns to France. And if you've never been there, and if you've never spent time integrating with the folk, then I would say that I would possibly value your opinion a little less, because there are cultural differences and similarities. Now, I don't want to offend any French viewers, because I have quite a number of them. I'm glad to say they're here, and some of them may dismiss what I say. It may not be their experience, but all I can tell you, my dear, and I am rather old school, I admit it, all I can tell you is that the behaviour that I saw is French, my dear, gloriously, beautifully, sordidly French. Naughty, unabashed, playful, and French. Je ne suis pas désolé. What can I say? My French lovers, and I've experienced a number throughout the years, might have jealously, possessively pinned me against the wall of the ruinous streets of Paris, or Burgundy, or Normandy, or Nice. They might have done. I might have been chased through the tipsy streets of Bordeaux, or through the fields of Provence, in my heels, my hair in a tousled-up du chignon, gitan in hand, and it's possible that I might have, on one occasion or the other, have slapped my lover round the face before he put me in my place. And before we made love. Do you understand? And I cannot confirm or deny such things have occurred, but all I will say is, ooh la la. Prince Harry has been in China. China. He's been in China. Dinner in the diner. Nothing could be finer than to have your ham and eggs in Shanghai. China. He's taking a break from the designer vagina, the penis flytrap of Montecito. And he's having a good time away from her, isn't he? Prince Harry flies from LA to Shanghai to promote greener travel. Yes, he flew 6,500 miles. And Mike Deacon said what everybody's thinking. He said, before dear Harry set off on the journey in question, did he not see such a headline coming? Did he not pause just for a moment and think, hang on, I'm about to give a speech about saving the planet, but in order to reach the venue at which I'll be speaking, I'll be getting into an aeroplane and flying approximately 6,500 miles. Is there perhaps a small risk that headline writers will try to make me look like some kind of comical hypocrite? Well, yeah. Exactly. The boy forms a royal household of his own making with his 11 disciples, all white as snow. And this is the advice that he takes. Is it any wonder that the boy is a laughingstock the world over? A laughingstock at precisely the same time that his father, the king, is being taken very seriously in Canada for a warm and intimate state opening of Parliament. It was a wonderful reminder of our Anglospheric bond, wasn't it, my dears, and my dear Canadian fruits? But I've got to get something out of my system, and that is the fact that Justin Trudeau is an absolute disgrace. A disgrace. And I haven't had particular disparagement for him before, but on this occasion I do. With his Adidas gazelles on full display at the Canadian Senate. I mean, seriously. Seriously, what is he thinking? He's always been respectful, regardless of politics, regardless of what he has and hasn't done for Canada. He's always been respectful of sovereigns Elizabeth and Charles. There is a familial connection and bond going back many years through his father's line. The Trudeaus have had a relationship, and a friendship, I would say, going back decades. So I'm afraid that I saw this as nothing other than an act of juvenile rebellion, because he is no longer in power. It's got to be something along those lines, because it takes one hell of a narcissistic bent to a personality, I'm afraid, to vie for attention in such a way. He knew what he was doing. He knew the solemnity of the occasion. And I understand that in Canada the proceedings have a slightly less formal feel than they do here in the Kingdom, and also in this era as well, in 2025, with, no one wants to look too royal or too colonial. I wouldn't mind doing so, but, that's the flavour. That's the favour. But what next? What are we going to have next? Bermuda shorts in the Senate? A bikini for the ladies or a string vest? I ask you. Absolutely. In for a dig. And, our leaders wear trainers sometimes on occasion. What's known as sneakers. They're called sneakers in other parts of the world. So, but we call them trainers, if you don't understand. They're known as sneakers in other lands. And, our politicians sneak about in them, but happily, not yet at a state function, to the best of my knowledge and remembrance anyway, not yet. And heaven forbid, if Mr. Trudeau has some sort of medical concern which requires orthopaedic shoes, or shoes of some sort of comfort for his trotters, some more sober design could be found than neon gazelles. Do you understand what on earth is this boy playing at? It's disrespectful not only to the King, but to Parliament, and moreover to the citizens of Canada. Do you understand? Tu compris? Well, it was a quickie, wasn't it? The whole affair was a quickie. It was a quick in and out, just like their Majesties like it. And then they departed, and the King said, as my wife and I leave Canada, we wanted to send our most heartfelt thanks to all those who turned out to offer their support on this, my first visit as sovereign. It was the warmest of welcomes and the fondest of returns to a land and a people we love. And until the next time, au revoir, Canada. And with all our thanks, King Charles and Queen Camilla. And he took to the throne for his speech, didn't he? It was a blend of the king's own words and sentiments, but also the government's own script. I believe that here in the kingdom, all of the words that the monarch gives off are scripted by the government, and the rules for no reaction are taken a bit more seriously here. So no clapping, no whooping and hollering. You did have some clapping and applause in this Canadian version, even though it was against the rules. But, you know, Canada has a less formal feel, understandably, but it all worked very well. It was all very respectful and very good, aside from Justin Trudeau and his trainers. The optics, of course, were richer decades ago, when the late Queen Liz made her appearances, either opening the Parliament or appearing for the throne speech. There was a little more opulence, and I much preferred the wardrobe. But that was of the era, I suppose. Can't be seen to be too imperial or colonial these days, so dressing down was the order of the day, and apparently to the right for the king, unlike his son, who dressed to the left last week, didn't he? Do you remember that? That was a jolly sight. A gauche, as one might say. Well, it wasn't a disordered fountain pen that sent His Majesty off this time. It was his script. Poor old sausage fingers there. Couldn't get the pages open, but eventually we got there. And the king spoke of paths toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. He also pronounced drastically as drastically, which I found interesting. You know, these things titillate me and titivate me. But it was actually a little bit like Papa Smurf reading a bedtime story, very soothing with his wonderful voice. I did begin actually drifting off as it got going, and he was speaking more of the government's words, but he spoke in a very elegant style, rather kingly, and he was alternating between English and French very fluidly, and I do hope that Prince William is practising, because we don't want to lose this sort of affair, do we? And the spectacle of a rare appearance by the sovereign for the opening of Canada's 45th Parliament literally asserted Canada's sovereignty. It was literally asserted. And whether or not Mr. Trump has any serious hankering to annex Canada, or was being playful, perhaps, when he called for Canada to become the 51st state of the Union, the threat itself has served to bolster those who cherish Canada's distinct history and personality, and perhaps introduce a few young minds to the reason for it and to the advantages of constitutional monarchy. See how the king, as head of state, is able to use his soft power to offer a form, an invisible form, but very tangible form, of a layer of protection. Isn't it wonderful? And isn't it magical? Yes, this is the magic of royalty. You know, and if Mr. Trump's intention was to mock the outgoing Justin Trudeau when he suggested that Canada should be annexed, I'm afraid it backfired rather spectacularly on Mr. Trump, because the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, was able to use that threat to rally patriotic support, and he achieved a very unlikely victory. So, sorry Trumpy, but you got trumped this time. And yes, affection for the crown was used as leverage by Mark Carney, and it worked. And it worked. The good people of Canada were confronted with an alternative choice, and they roundly rejected the notion, roundly rejected it, with the king's subtle help. So when the king hosts Mr. Trump in September, he might actually thank the president for unintentionally reminding one of the king's realms of the great benefits of the systems and the machinery of monarchical democracy, the desirability and the allure of a head of state who is neither politician or partisan, and of the argument for an unelected head of state overseeing elected ministers, with the head of state installed via birthright instead of ambition, or tenacity, or talent, or clout, or virtue, or vendetta. Their Majesties were the toast of Ottawa. They truly were. They were mobbed amongst the throngs of enthusiasm, and there was a warm welcome from all the officials. There were swarming crowds of patriots. They were chanting, "God save the King, God save the King." It was quite something to behold, I've got to tell you. And arriving in Ottawa after flying in by Canadian Royal Air Force jet, the Queen's diamond maple leaf brooch shone under the sunbeams. It was glorious. It was created by Asprey, and originally it was a gift for Elizabeth, the late Queen Mother, in her role as Queen by George VI. That was in advance of their first tour of Canada. And the Majesties made their way to Lansdowne Park, and they must have felt right at home at once, because of Lady Lansdowne, of course, the Queen's companion and wonderful friend Fiona, who I love to call Fifi. Well, they had a lovely time at Lansdowne Park, and flowers rained down on La Reine, Queen Camilla. The both of them were adored by the affectionate fruits of Canada. There was a tree-planting ceremony, the official residence of the Governor-General of Canada, a blue beech tree to recognise their visit. There are over 150 trees in the grounds, 4 of them planted by Charles when he was Prince of Wales and 5 planted by Elizabeth II. It's more or less a royal copse these days, isn't it? And speaking of blue trees, my Californian lilac that I've been sharing with you, the ceanothus, to give it its official name, has shed her blossom. Yes, I wasn't expecting it to come and go so quickly, my dear. I'm quite upset. You know, like the gorgeous, there's some lovely houses around here with wisteria that just flush the brickwork lavender for a few weeks. And it's a joy, but it graces the scene for just a few weeks, doesn't it, my dear? This sort of blossom, like an old friend coming to stay on holiday with one for a few weeks once a year. I do miss it. But the King met with the Prime Minister of Canada and his lady, who is Diana Fox and Carney, and they made a very foxy foursome, I dare say. The Queen was sworn in as a member of the Privy Council, a group of people who advise the King on issues of importance. And no doubt Harry has been arranging the same sort of system around him, his own little Privy Council of America and of Montecito. Well, I don't think so, my dear. The only privy you belong in is the outdoor loo, when wifey sends you off after a sulk, do you understand? To have a great big dump on your own in your private privy in the back garden. That's the only privy that you'll be counselling. Do you understand? In the presence of the King, the Governor-General and the Queen participated in a private ceremony, and it was all very mysterious. Don't throw daylight on magic. Never throw daylight on magic. The King held audiences with the First Nations chief and representatives of the Inuit. And before you ask, no, it was not the gentleman who deflowered me in the ladies' loos at Bungalow. No, that was a different Eskimo. This week heralded the first official use of the modified version of the Canadian Royal Standard of the Sovereign, and it was altered after the death of Elizabeth II, and is an expression of Canadian sovereignty, inspired by the arms of Canada. Respects were paid at the tomb of the unknown warrior at the National War Memorial. So I'll be dying to hear from my Canadian fruit basketeers. Did any of you meet the King or see the King or simply enjoy the spectacle? In person or on the box, let us know how it went, my dears. If you're not aware, here in the Kingdom, there was a nasty incident in Liverpool where a car became trapped in a crowd of thousands of people during a parade for a football trophy. And I'm not completely up to date on what's going on or why this chap decided to ram his car into the crowd, injuring many, many people. But the latest I've heard, which could be wrong, but I was just reading this morning, that he's known as a thoroughly nice chap and a family man who might have just panicked under the stress of the situation. Something went off in his head. Although I was reading a couple of days ago that it might be drugs might have been involved, so I have no idea what went on, why this unfortunate episode happened. I'm not trying to excuse him, I'm just saying what I've read. But the King released a statement saying that my wife and I were deeply shocked and saddened to hear of the terrible events that took place in Liverpool on Monday. It's truly devastating to see that what should have been a joyous celebration for so many could end in such distressing circumstances. At this heartbreaking time for the people of Liverpool, I know that the strength of community spirit for which your city is renowned will be a comfort and support to those in need. Our prayers and deepest sympathy are with all those who have been affected, and my special gratitude goes out to the first responders, emergency services personnel, and other individuals who rushed to the aid of the injured, King Charles. And it just so happened that Princess Anne was in Liverpool following this car incident, and so she was able to visit the Royal Liverpool University Hospital to thank the nurses and the consultants and paramedics, as well as representatives from Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service and the football club. After all these injured people came in, they're saying there were 79 people injured by the car. So all of these were needing treatment, the walking wounded. And the medical staff who treated the injured said that it was very, very fortunate that there were not more major injuries. Princess Anne had been due for a visit to the Queen Anne anyway for that day as part of Cunard's 185th anniversary. So sadly, a photo exhibition that she was going to attend was cancelled following the nasty incident, but it seems that the princess was able to make a low-key visit and celebrate in a more gentle manner. Thank you so much for joining me and for your fruity company. Thank you to anyone who might have sent me a tip jar treat. It's sincerely appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you in the next show. Ta-ra for now, my dears, and toodle pip.